Hey guys, Ryan Gill here with Hunt Primitive, where we entertain, educate, and inspire. And I'm lubricating up a little bit because it's the end of the evening and I'm ready to be done for the day, but I get this question so many times. It's the number one napping question I get, and that is, how do I get my points or bifaces thinner? And that is exactly what we're going to cover right now, and we're going to do it as fast and concise as I possibly can, so hang with me. Okay, so like I said, the biggest question that I always get from folks is how to make their pieces thinner. I've got a couple pieces of agatized coral here that are kind of bifaced out, but they're thick. So we had to get some, had to make some thick pieces just so I could show you how to thin them down, because this is where a lot of people end up. They start off with their napping journey and they're getting a good start, but thinning has got to be probably the toughest point. And I know where people are coming from because I was in the same category. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to work with copper because that's what 95% of you are going to work with, but the mechanics are the same if you're just totally abo napping. But we're going to work with copper, show you how to work through it, and really thin a piece down. There's a lot of times that somebody will get to a piece that's like this, that's maybe 3/4 or 7/8 thick and not overly wide or long, and they're like, that's it, I'm done. And all they'll do is continue to chip it down until they have a piece that's smaller this way but not much thinner this way, and they end up with the clunky pieces, and that's when I get the messages. So let's really work through how to do this. Alright, so as we get started, like I said, we're going to work copper. I've got a whole bunch of different tools here, copper tools, flakers, abraders, all that kind of stuff. And I have to tell you all this now because if you just happen to be following my channel for the first time, then I hope you'll consider subscribing, but you may be kind of lost as to what we're going through right now. I have another video. I'm going to drop it down in the description. It is Flint Knapping for Beginners. So if you're just happen to click on this video and you're just going to get started, don't watch this video now. Go to the video that's down in the description and click the Flint Knapping for Beginners, or go to the search bar in YouTube and type in Hunt Primitive Flint Knapping for Beginners, and we're going to take you there. This is to the people that really have issues with thinning a thick piece. So when it comes down to tools and all the stuff that I use, I don't care where you get the tools from. Yes, we do provide tools to people, but that's not the sales pitch here. If you want to buy tools from us, I greatly appreciate it, and that's at huntprimitive.com. But at the end of the day, I'm here to try to teach you how to do this. So I don't care where you get your tools from, as long as they're quality tools. And like I said, if you want to use ours, that's phenomenal. I much appreciate it. If not, that's fine perfectly too. Okay, so if you watched in the Flint Knapping for Beginners video, I talk about say like a ream of paper, and you have to remove higher stuff before you remove lower stuff, okay? And also remember, this is a great time to just say, please go back and do a refresher on that if you must, okay? And if you're looking for a magic pill and a 3-second answer to this, there is no 3-second answer, okay? But you have to remember the mechanics of that, where I mentioned moving your platform over to one side. That is the whole big secret to thinning a piece, is moving your platform over to the side. And now I know a lot of people would look at a piece like this and they would say, well, I want this to be as big as I could possibly make it. Well, that's great if you're really advanced and you know exactly where to hit this and you can knock off the best flakes to thin it as fast as possible. But in the grand reality of things, you may end up with a point, if you're just starting out, that is maybe only this big, okay? Because remember, you're probably not skilled enough, if you're watching this video, to get to where you can retain all of the size. But you'll get there at some point, okay? But it's all baby steps, right? So you might end up with something a lot smaller than this. But you have to be willing to sacrifice. This is the biggest piece of information I could possibly give you. You need to be able to sacrifice the length and the width of this project to thin it out. Because right now, it's massively thick. It's almost a 90-degree angle right here, and probably like 70-degree right here. So you've got some major issues to work through on this. And the idea that you're going to be able to retain this entire size of this piece and only remove a couple things and thin it is probably not going to happen. So if you can come to the reality of that, this is probably going to be a smaller arrowhead for you. That's exactly where you need to be. Okay, so what we're going to do, find a platform, and I love this one right here. Okay, so it is off to this side, and it heavily favors this side, but it's not quite far enough. It's still almost to the center line. So again, referring back to that other video, and I'll try not to refer to it too much, because if you don't know what I'm talking about, you really do need to watch the Flint Knapping for Beginners, where I talk about this in depth. Okay, so we're going to kind of leave that alone, and I'm just going to go full advanced on you. Okay, so when we talk about the center line of the point, some of this is on the one side, and yes, I think we can remove a substantial flake off of this side, off of, say, like this platform, and maybe even this one here. Anything on this side is out of the question because there's a slight dip in it. I don't know if you can see that, but most people, I think what they run into is this is almost on the center line, and then they're like, okay, well, this is good enough, I'm going to hit it. Well, the problem is you're probably not going to go all the way to center. And if you do go to center, it's going to be just to center. It's not going to be past center. So the only way that you're going to truly thin this piece is to go past center. And some of these need to be potentially even overshot flakes. The only way that you're going to be able to do that is to look at your platforms and say, okay, it favors this side, and I'm going to remove it off this flake. But you need to understand that that platform is not far enough on that side. That's the big secret to thinning. When you hit a platform and you need to reduce thickness really quickly, your platform needs to be raised. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise this platform by removing flakes off of this side on the downward stroke. And I'm going to raise the platform, and I'll show it to you again, and the platform is going to be almost all entirely on this side, and then we're going to remove massive flakes to thin it. So let's do that right now, okay? So little choppy flakes. I'm not trying to drive anything to center right now. All I'm doing is setting up a platform and raising that center line to this side. Let's see if you can see it already. I've already removed choppy flakes. So here I didn't, that's where the it was before, remember, here and here, and you can already see how much further over on this side that is. That's what we're trying to do, okay? So we're going to raise that platform. You have to be willing to sacrifice some of your width at this point. So raise that platform as far as it'll go, and then I'm going to take my abrader, and if this is where my platform is and we're going to take the strikes off of this side, I'm going to take the abrader and I'm going to go this way with it. And I'm going to abrade it really hard. I mean, I got to knock every loose piece of rock off of that. I don't want anything to obstruct the hits that I'm about to make on it. So even if I think I did it enough, we're going to do it some more, okay? So now I'll take a little bit bigger, the larger bopper. I don't know if I really need that or not. And even though I want to drive big flakes into here, there's a little bit of a dip on the back side. You see this? It's like a nice little fluid, isn't it? Well, I can't go hog wild and start knocking a great big flake into here because it's going to hit this valley and it's going to stop. So what I actually need to do is I need to remove here, because remember, we want to start on an end as opposed to directly in the middle. So we talk about that in the beginner's video, is we want to start on one end and work around. And we have a good platform here, but I need to release some of this, okay? Remember, that's some of the big secrets in this, is you don't just jump straight to your best platform and hit it first. You want to release some of this, so when you do need to drive that big thinning flake, there's nothing else holding it on the sides, okay? Does that make sense? So we're going to start on this end, and instead of removing these big hossy flakes, we're going to try to run it to about maybe here, okay? So let's go ahead. I knocked that one. You can see it is pretty much terminated exactly where I said it was going to. You see the little hinge right there? It's perfect. Okay, so we're going to walk those down. Okay. I'm going to braid that off again really quick. So let's look at that again. If you got to rewind it and go back and look, that's fine. So here was our like little flute valley that was here, and we almost started to blend it in to where it's all the same level at this point. Okay, so now we're working up to this bigger platform. Now instead of hitting directly on here, what I think I want to do, well, I'm undecided. I'm trying to decide if I want to hit here or develop it a little bit more. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over towards the tip, and I'm going to try to remove that flake, at least a little one. Perfect. That one ran almost all the way. It definitely ran over. It wasn't an overshot, but it ran pretty far over. Okay, so I kind of released here on the back side, and now I think we're looking at taking on this bigger piece. So take your time and get your angles right. And actually, where I'm going to come from is I'm not going to come from this side. I'm going to come from this side. It just looks better to me. And that's something that's intuitive, and I don't know how to explain it. I just like the looks of that platform a little bit better. So I'm going to get my angle right and knock that flake over. Okay? So that flake right there ran all the way over through the valley, and it actually kind of hinged. You can see there's a hinge right here. But it hinged on the other third. Had it traveled all the way out, that would have been great, but that's not a big deal. We can clean that up later. Okay, so before I hit it again, I want to braid it up, and I want to look at it. Am I ready to hit it here? I don't think so. I'm actually going to back it up, and I'm going to hit it on this other one. So I'm going to show that piece to you again. A lot of people are going to jump straight to this one. Well, it's going to run right down in. It's actually going to make that hinge worse. Okay, it's really overexposed at this point. It's almost too far now. But this one right here is probably just about perfect to hit that one again. So we're going to do that. And it was. Okay, so we clean that up. Now, instead of trying to drive this one home, I actually want to try to terminate it right at center. So I'm not going to put quite as much of an angle on it. Go ahead and braid it up to make sure all the loose stuff is knocked off of it. And I want to turn the angle up this way a little bit more. And you can see where I got a little hinge right there. You can see that? Little hinge. That's what I love about the coral. You can actually see the hinges really well. If we continue to try to develop this, honestly what's going to happen is we're going to continue to hinge it right here. But I do have one more I'm going to try, and it's probably going to hinge a little bit bad, and I'll have to clean it up, but I kind of want to do it and see what happens. And if I clean it up nice, I can say, oh, look, I did it. And then if it hinges worse, I'll be like, yeah, I called it. Okay? It didn't really make a lot of difference. You can see that little hinge right there. But that's good. So we clean that side up, and if you look down at now, see how flat that side is? That thing was mounded up like this side was. Actually, even worse. It was like this. And now we flattened that. And the reason we were able to do that, remember, is we raised the platform significantly so we could drive a flake all the way across. Now, if you say, okay, well now what about this side? It's flat on this side, but look how rounded and turtle-backed it is. Not a problem. This is where you have to be willing to sacrifice some of your width. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll knock on the flat side, we'll go towards it. And I always typically a braid away from where I want to hit. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just a habit. I'm not sure. And I'm going to switch to the medium-sized bopper at this point for no other reason than it sounds like a good time. And I'm not trying to drive any more long flakes per se. What I'm trying to do is raise the platform. And I might take a couple little bit longer hits, not to run full to center. But like there's one right here. I'll try to hit that just in a little bit further. Clean it up. But for the most part, I just want choppy flakes that don't go very far. And I want to raise the platform to the other side. This is where we're sacrificing our width. But if you're making an arrow point or an atlatl point, it's too wide anyway. So don't worry about that. Okay? It's not always about making the biggest point you can. It's about making the most functional point you can. So you'll notice too that when I want to start raising a platform and do the choppy flakes, I don't necessarily hit this angle. I start to rotate this up and hit it at angles that a lot of people say don't hit it at that angle because you're not going to get a flake to go far. Well, remember, I'm not trying to get a flake to go far. I'm trying to create a platform, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So if you got to go back and rewind about 30 seconds to see what the platform looked like first, you can. Remember how it was flat on this side? Well, look, we just moved the center line to that side, and that was by rotating it up this way and taking not flakes this way to run across, but this way to just raise the platform. See how we raised the platform and we moved it over? Because that was the flat side. So we're going to braid away from where we want to remove the flakes, which is on this side. Okay, now we'll flip it over. This is where it starts getting kind of serious. We got to start trying to knock some serious flakes over, but there is a little valley on this side too, so we got to be careful. If we just slam into this, we'll hinge it. So we almost have to show a little bit of finesse and just take this outer bump off before we get into that valley, okay? So again, I'll kind of take the medium-sized bopper, and I ran one that didn't go into here and hinge. It stopped right on the outside. Okay, and then do another one, and it did pretty much exactly the same thing. Okay, so now we got rid of that valley because we made it kind of an even plane right across here. So we'll braid that the other way. But these are our major platforms, and this is where it starts getting serious. So remember, our center line is far now on this side, okay? So now this platform right here is our most significant platform to try to drive serious flakes over, okay? This is one of those situations where if you're worried about it, you're probably not going to thin it. So you're going to have to get to a point where you have a come into Jesus moment with this piece of rock and say you're either going to thin or you're not going to thin, okay? So line this thing up, get your angles about right, and drive a flake across it. And that one was okay. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. There you go. Oh, I've lost a bunch of it, but you'll get the picture here because I'll show you at least this one. Okay, so it was this way. That's how y'all looked at it, so I want to show it to you. Look at how much I thinned that right there. And that flake and a whole bunch of these other ones, can you see what came out of there? And we thinned that thing a massive amount on just that one hit. Okay? Now I can't run this one. I can't go wallop that piece because it's going to run and hit into this valley. So I'll take the smaller bopper, couple little flakes. What I'm really doing is I'm developing the next big platform, which is right here. You can see that. Okay, I think that's about where we're looking at. I'm kind of feeling the medium bopper on this one because I don't have to go all the way across. I only have to go to center. Because if I'm looking at this piece, and I don't know if y'all can see it as well as I can, but this is kind of a flat plane here. I'm not going to be able to drive this flake to the other side because it's going to hit, there's a slight dip right here, maybe a millimeter lower. And it's going to stop. So what I'm trying to do is remove this flake to just meet the same plane that this flake is on. Which did it, that did it perfectly. There's not a whole lot to see. You can't really see the flake scar. But we did that. That actually kind of opened us up a little bit. I can, instead of hitting it here, I can actually jump a little bit lower now. And there is another little dip right here. Okay, let's see if you can really see that. There's another little dip right here. So if I go hitting this platform and try to drive it across, it's going to stop. But I can go to center. I just can't really go beyond center. And I got rid of that one, so now I have one more good platform. You can see how this is more on this side now. Okay, so that's exactly where we are here. Now there is still a slight dip because that one we took up here was so good that it ran down into here. It didn't just go across. I angled it down over the piece and took the whole turtle back out. So now, go ahead and knock that out. Might have one more if I'm not getting too greedy. I'm getting greedy. Definitely getting greedy. Okay, that's enough. So, now you can see that this is almost the flat side. Well, isn't that kind of funny? Because this was the flat side before because you were looking at it like this. Okay, so now we actually have a little bit of a hump on this side. Well, continue to sacrifice your width, and we're still fine. As far as an arrowhead or an atlatl head, we're perfectly fine. We're going to raise that platform again. But now, instead of just jumping over to that, let's flip it over and let's just look at this side, because we haven't even touched this side yet. You see that? Now we've got a great platform here. We got some here. In fact, what first thing I'm going to do is, instead of hitting this big Hossy platform first, I'm going to slide down and I'm going to remove a couple flakes here because there's a little bit of a dip in the middle. Remember, you can't drive a big flake through a dip with consistency. You can do it, but not with consistency. So I'm just trying to meet the dip, like I talked about in the Flint Knapping for beginners, the ream of paper. I called it a flat of paper at the time, but I was so eloquently corrected that it's a ream of paper. So we just thin that tip out. That's perfect. Now we got to this big platform here. So I'm going to abrade that away. And I don't think I'm going to be able to run across. You can see there's a little bit of a hinge here. So read the rock, okay? There's a little bit of a hinge. If I try to hit it here, what I'm probably going to do is take that hinge out, but I'm going to create a new one right in the middle. I don't want to do that. So I can't try to drive this flake all the way across center. All I can do is try to eliminate that one little hinge you can see right there. So I'm going to turn it over. I didn't get a very good lick on that, so I kind of hinged it more. And that's okay too, mistakes happen. Okay, I actually kind of came in, I hinged it more, but we still have plenty of material to work with. So abrade it out a little bit more. Switch back over to the, well, maybe the medium bopper still. Still wants to be a cuss word expletive. Okay, it's crushing on me. Not a big deal. So this is where the problem is with a lot of people. They're going to just keep hitting the dang thing and making it worse. Okay, stop doing it. Let's go to a different point. Let's come to the back and start working off this side. So we've got plenty of material to work with here. We'll remove a couple flakes just to thin it a little bit, nothing fantastic, and to raise the platform. And I can't really do a whole lot with it because I'm going to start hinging right here. I got a teeny tiny little hinge started, so we might as well stick with that. Now, we're going to go ahead, there's a little platform here. We're going to go ahead and try to abrade that off. Just develop the platform a little bit more to work back over this side. That's another little tip right there. If you hit a platform and it doesn't want to go on the first couple hits, don't keep hitting it. You shouldn't have, there's no part of these tools, now they're put together really well, okay? We use industrial grade epoxy that has to be set with heat. We have to put them in a hot box set. This is really good glue that holds these together. At least within the last several months that we've been doing this, we had some issues at first with some of them coming off using like 5-minute epoxy or 1-hour epoxy. We don't do that anymore. They very rarely ever come apart. But if you're sitting here with these things and you are flat whaling it, you'll notice I've never once set up and just creamed this thing. Okay? You set your platform up, it doesn't take much of a hit at all to knock this stuff off. So once you get the right platform, every hit that I'm really doing that removes flakes is nothing more than a wrist hit. Do you see that? I'm not winding up and hitting anything. If you're having to wind up to hit it, it's because your platform's not set up right. And we're not worried about the tools, because the tools are tough. But what's going to happen is you're going to blow your piece of rock up. So if you have to wind up to hit it, your platform's not set up. So this is why, honestly, I've talked about this in other videos as well. And it's not to say that women can't be tough, but the idea is look at it as if a woman was going to set up to hit it and just tap it like that. Okay, so try to put your male aggression stuff, and I'm about as aggressive and alpha as about anybody, so I totally get it, but you ain't got to beat this thing up, okay? So almost look at it like, huh, what would my wife or what would my girlfriend do? She would look at it and go, a little wrist hit. That's what you're looking for. And you're going to get beautiful flakes if you do that. Okay? So kind of go with that mentality in mind. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm raising this platform way over to this side because that's where that little hingey thing was. If you got to rewind it and go back and watch it again, you'll understand that's where that hinge is. We've raised that platform. One little hit, didn't have to whale it, little wrist hit. We ran it all the way 3/4 across the way. Okay, ran all the way to there. I got two flakes, broken half. Ran 3/4 across. Perfect. Remember, this is where we kind of messed up. We didn't do so good. It kind of stalled out on us. So we came back here and started. So let's keep working towards that spot. Knocking flakes off. We're doing good. Keep abrading back hard. Remember, if you're going to thin, if you're taking good thinning flakes, you do not want this to crush early. So abrade very, very well. You almost can't abrade enough. And that worked good. That was that one piece that was that one crusty looking hinge. If I could even find where that thing goes again. It was gnarly. And I was worried about it, but we just blew that whole thing off. So now when we look down the piece, it's actually very lenticular, and we've thinned it down. It's still a little bit too thick, but we've really thinned it down, and there's no hinges. And this is coral, okay? So coral is known to kind of hinge a little bit. Beautiful rock, and it's also exceptionally sharp and exceptionally strong, and I absolutely love agatized coral. Sometimes when we use the Edwards or the Georgetown, that's kind of like the cheat code for flint knapping. But coral really tells the story, and we don't have any major hinges in here. So we've done our job really well. Okay, so now I'm going to flip it back over, and you can see on this one here, there's a little bit of a dip still in here, and we've got a high spot here. So that's my new target area that I want to run flakes across. Now we don't have to develop that platform quite as high, because we're not trying to drive past center. All we're trying to do is come to here. So don't overthink it too much. Abrade it off, and in this case, I can abrade away, but I'm also abrading with the blade. I don't know why sometimes I do that. I think it's just intuitive. And I'm going to come back to a good platform, and I'm just going to take a couple, whoop, I better not do that one yet. That was close. I hit it one time, and it didn't let go. And I just can look at it, and I know if I continue to hit it, I'm going to snap the piece in half, because there's a little bit of a dip here, a little bit of a dip here. So don't force it. Now, in this situation, I'm going to try to get this close enough so y'all can see it and put it in focus. You can see it dips down right here. This was the platform that I hit right there, and it didn't want to go. And I had a feeling if I just walloped it again, boom, I'm going to bust it right in half. And this just takes practice. Okay, so now I want to remove this flake, but this platform kind of sucks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chip here off this side to develop that platform just a little bit. So I'm going to flip it over and lay it down. And I just want to pressure flake and drop my tools. A lot of y'all made fun of me in the first video for that. I do have a table in front of me, just so y'all know. And my bucket full of tools. But I braid it again away from where I want it to go. So we developed the platform. Now I'm going to lay it down. Little tiny hit. See, that's all it took. Boom, knock that little flake off. Perfect. Okay, a couple other ones here. Just going to kind of clean up, chop, flake it out. Nothing fancy. But do you see how we sacrificed a little? We didn't even sacrifice any length. We sacrificed width. But we're still exactly where we need to be. So now let's go ahead and look down. Look over this whole piece. Okay, you can see this side's got a little bit more rounding in it, and it's mostly right here. It's not even in the middle, it's kind of up here. So you can see that? So, but I do want to go ahead and raise the platform up on this side. I want to move the platform this way, and to do that, now we're going to pressure flake it. And we're just pressure flaking down. I'm not trying to remove thinning flakes. I'm trying to raise a platform. And we could do little choppy flakes as well. But at this stage, I'm just wanting to use the pressure flaker. And then I'm going to braid away from that same platform. grab the bopper. Okay, see how we raised the platform over? And we'll lay that side down. And that flake right there ran 3/4 of the way across. Now before I hit it again, I'm going to braid that again just in case there's any other loose stuff. Next platform. Almost the same thing, didn't go quite as far, but went pretty far. Next one down. Whoop! Ooh, we got one that terminated right there. So that's ugly. So we did get a little bit of a hinge there. And you can see now how it's separated, but it hasn't let go. So the flake is kind of there, but it hasn't let go. So that's kind of dangerous territory. Don't come up here and hit it again. And I'll tell you why. Because you're gonna absolutely hinge the crap out of that. Come down and now come back from the tip back to you. Okay? Set up the next platform. And we knocked it off, which was perfect. And what you're going to see now, I'm going to show it to you, is that's the one that we just removed right here. And you can actually see it developed. See how it's still hanging on? You can see like that opaque line. It developed that even more. So now, instead of still trying to remove it, we're going to come up to, I'm going to show you this a little bit more in depth, okay? So instead of trying to remove, you can see where it's clinging to life here. So instead of trying to hit it here and remove it, it's not going to. What it's going to do, it's going to hinge here even more. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try one more hit, but it's going to be over here on this platform. See that platform right there? And then try to undercut. I'm not trying to meet it, I'm trying to undercut it. Now I might be successful, I might not be. So what I'm going to do, this is where a new tool comes in extremely handy. That's where it's time to start switching to indirect percussion. This is where this stuff gets really handy. So now that same platform I just told you about, I'm going to go ahead and line that up. Take my time, really look at it. See if you can see that. Completely blew it off. So what we did was go back and look at it again if you have to. Now we still have hinges here, but we knew that was going to happen. But all that stuff that was undercut, or all that stuff that was like that opaque line that was cracked, we undercut it with this platform, cut under it, and removed all of that. Now we still have a high spot, but that's no big deal because we have to thin this hump anyway, and we're going to do it from this side, but we're not going to do it yet because we're almost there with this. So now what I'll do is I'm going to continue with the indirect. I'm going to work on the tip a little bit more, and I'm going to work back here just a little bit. But I'm going to, before I just go jumping into the indirect, what I want to do is I want to develop the platform just a little, not a ton. Indirect will really grab it. But you don't want to use indirect too early, or you're just going to continue to round the piece. So it's like you have to kind of know when to switch over to indirect. And that stuff, it just takes practice. That's something that's very hard to teach. It just simply means you have to put in a lot of rock time before you get to that point. And indirect, you actually, that one ran almost over to center. Indirect, I want to talk to you about this too, is some indirect we hover, this I'm kissing it right up against it. And I have a whole video on indirect percussion, and I will drop a link down in the description on that. It's very, very good information. And these indirect sticks I really like. I know a lot of guys like the Delron rods for a lot of things. You can replace the tips. These things last me like a year, and I Flint Knap a ton because I don't use them for anything for indirect, so they last a really long time for me. But the wood, to me, transfers the energy that I'm looking for. I love wood-handled tools. I know a lot of guys love the Delron stuff, especially because it lasts a really long time, and you can use an Allen key, and you can replace the piece. There's always a little bit of wiggle when it comes to it, which I really dislike. But when I hit that Delron, for whatever reason, it doesn't jive with me at all. It might with you, but that's why I stick with wood tools, because I get a lot better transfer of the energy that I'm looking for, and I can literally drive like that. Flakes, man, I wish you could really see that. I get a lot better kiss on the tool without the shock of plastic. That's why I like wood so much. So this flake ran all the way from this platform, okay? It overshot all the way out. It literally ran all the way up to here and thinned this whole mound out. So that's the power of indirect percussion. It does take a little bit of practice, like anything else. But now I'm going to skip over where the hinges are and I'm going to go to the back of the piece, and that's where I'm going to work on next, okay? It's kind of the same thing. I was going to just grab onto it and hit it, but what I'm actually going to do is I actually want to blunt that platform a little bit. The platform stuck out so far that it had a little bit of a dish in it. And if you hit into that dish, it's going to stall. So I'm actually blunting the platform. It's almost too far to that side. I'm going to raise it and just kind of crud it up a little bit. Really rough it up, and then I've got that platform right there. And what I'm trying to do is aim it. I'm not just going straight in. I'm actually going to face the stick to, well, I can't go straight in. I actually have to kind of almost run across on the first flake. Ooh, that's a tough one. Let's see if we can do it. Might not go. Okay. Try to get you good in focus before I let it go. Okay, so you can see where I hit it was over here. Okay. See how far that ran across? We ran 7/8 of the way across that and wiped that whole gnarly section out. Now this side we can't hit this with indirect anymore because of this nasty hinge area here. We're gonna have to come from it from this angle, but man, we've really thinned that out. Okay, that's the power of indirect percussion. Now on the back side there's another spot here. I'm gonna try to knock that piece out, and it's not a super big hit, it's just a couple little cleanup flakes. So if you want to drop down in the comments and let me know if you've worked wood and Delron tools, let me know. I know everybody has their preference, and I'm perfectly okay. Everybody can just use whatever they want to do, but I would be curious to know if you've worked wood and Delron and if you prefer one over the other and why. Is it just because you can replace the copper easy, or is it a transfer of energy? Because that's where I had the biggest hang up is wood. I get the best transfer of energy without the extra shock that just kind of splatters in spiderwebs into the rock. But it might just be that I'm more practiced with the wood. So you let me know what you think in the comments while I go ahead and get a little bit more Knapping lubricant on board. Alright, so we switched sides. This was the side we just worked on. We flip it over. And at this point, we're starting to get pretty thin, okay? We're not going to finish the piece out. All I'm really trying to do is show you how to make a really thin biface. And I think we've just about got this side where we want it. I think we could go a little bit thinner. So I might try to remove 1 or 2 more flakes on this side. But they're just generic thinning flakes with indirect percussion. There's no real trouble spots to work through. So that went a little bit past center. That went a little bit past center. Ooh, I'm getting a little scary. Got maybe 1 more to do. Don't push it if it's okay. I got a little bit of hinging going on, so I don't want to push it. Now it's not bad. It's just a tiny bit, and we'll clean it up with pressure flaking and whatnot. It's not. It probably looks worse than it is, but it's very, very slight hinging, and it's not a big deal. We can clean that up with pressure later. This surface is overall, if you can see it, it's quite nice. Obviously, this is our tip. That's the base. Looking good. Might even clean up the base a little bit because you don't want to save the base for totally last because you can get some weird shock waves that run up when you're hitting the base. So we'll just clean that up just a little bit so we don't have to do it all later. But it's the same process. It's just taking off the high spots. And I really love the indirect. If you want to be the best snapper you can be, I'm telling you, get into indirect percussion. I don't care what kind of tool you use. If you want to be the best snapper that you can possibly be, you really, really, really need to get into indirect percussion. And I absolutely did not pioneer this, and I'm pretty sure I picked it up from another guy at a nap-in, but I'm pretty sure the under the leg stuff came from Jack Crafty, and if he's the one that pioneered that, I can't thank him enough, because it's really, really, really good stuff, and I've grown really accustomed to it. So you can't credit me for this. I just make the sticks and play the game. I think he might have been the one that really made that popular, and I don't want that to go unsaid. So here's where we had worked a little bit earlier. Remember that all the big gnarly flakes we were removing, and I said there was a little spot here. Now I need to start working over on this side, so what I'm going to do is I have to raise that platform, but we're past the point where I can't use percussion to make the choppy flakes, so I have to raise the platform with pressure flaking, because I don't want to break the piece. Also, another little hint, I never really intended for this to happen, but I've seen some folks that watch my videos that they'll actually take the Big Bopper and they'll use that as their indirect bopper, and I don't hate it, and I think it does work, and maybe you do get good at it. I've seen that now multiple times where I'm like, no, just, you know, get something else and hit with it. It's got the weight, but this feels so much different than this. And I don't sell wood mallets because it just seems like something everybody could get, and it's such a weird thing to try to put together and sell. I'd almost rather you just go out and cut a hefty little branch in your yard and whittle it down and make it work. If I absolutely have to sell them in the future, I will, but I just don't think it's necessary to sell a big stick. That right there feels so much different when it comes to hitting the tool than this. I'm not saying you can't drive the flakes with this, because you can, but that right there has so much of a different feel to it. I think if you tried it out, you would get where I'm coming from, and you probably wouldn't want to hit it with the Big Bopper anymore. I just wanted to kind of point that out. So anyway, I raised the platform over to this side. I'm going to use indirect, and I'm driving flakes, and most of these flakes, this one's stuck, so it's kind of good. Lost a flaker, so I'll grab another one. This one here, it's stuck, so you can see it went just past center, but it took out that high spot. So I had a high spot there, I got a little one here, and a little bit here. So again, you could freehand this with the Little Rascal also. I showed doing that, and that's one of the reasons that I love that tool. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. On coral, a lot of times I don't use this on coral, I use it on Edwards. I'm not saying that you can't use it, because you can. You can get great flakes that run across. But on Edwards chert, this tool seems to work really, really, really well. I don't seem to use it a lot on coral. Every now and then, but more and more I'm switching over to indirect, like that. And the angle, if it stalls out, then what you need to do less angle. Almost do it to where you're trying to take a short flake, because oddly enough, it will remove a longer flake. So the angles are a little bit different on indirect. Okay. Okay. I think we're getting pretty close where I'm going to probably call it and say, okay, you can see where how I thinned the piece down, because that's what you're here to see. We're not going to finish it out. We're not going to sharpen it. We're not going to notch it. We're not going to do any of that stuff, because we've done that in plenty of other videos. I just wanted to get you to a point where you could thin this down to a point where now it's either just a little bit of indirect. Ooh, that was a good one, right over the tip. That was beautiful. Or just pressure flake it to finish it out. And I think that we're just about there. So yep, I would say we're just almost there, and I wanted to do some aggressive, couple last minute aggressive thinning flakes just to show you really getting this thing down. So let me develop one more little platform, and then we're going to call this good. And then you'll be able to handle it from there just with pressure flaking. Ooh, boy, that one. Boy, did that one run right across. That was some of that stuff where I said before we had those little micro step fractures right there. Well, they're not there anymore. We blew that thing almost completely across center. That one too. Oh man, I gotta hold on to that one. Okay, watch close. Took that whole step fracture right out of it. Beautiful. Now this one, I don't want to hit that. I don't want to hit this one very hard because I'm just trying to clean it up. If I hit it too hard, I'll create more step fractures. In fact, I'm gonna rock the piece away because I'm not trying to go across center. I'm just trying to go almost to center. Oh, perfect. Got one little clinger. We got that one. That side right there is just about phenomenal. You ain't gonna ask for anything better than that. Okay, we'll flip it over. We got one more high spot. Let's work past that. We might even have to come from this side, honestly. I think we do. So let's raise that platform up one more time. But I think you're kind of getting the gist of it at this point. And we're still way bigger than an arrowhead. So that piece that I showed you when we started with, I know a lot of people are going to be down because they're probably going to make some mistakes, especially if you're just getting started and you're really trying to learn how to thin. Every time you make a mistake, your piece just gets smaller. But we're able to, I mean, this is still way bigger than an arrowhead to me. I mean, this is an at-level point without a doubt. So, I mean, it's even a small knife blade. So I got this one last gnarly spot. And indirect is 100% the way to go. So let's go ahead. Whoop, almost too much pressure. That was a good one. We ran that one really far. That was nice. Stop and abrade every time. Don't be in a rush. Abrade, study the piece, make a hit. Oh, love it. Gotta show you that one. Okay. It's disconnected, but it's perfect because you can see it wiped out that whole crusty section right there. It is so beautiful and thin right across here now on both. That side almost needs a little bit more, but that's not a big deal. It's so beautiful right there. So abrade it, study it for a second, line it up, not too much angle, hit it again. Okay, so we got another little one off there, nothing fantastic. We're getting right into the heart of it now, so I'm hoping I can do this for y'all and put on a good show. I never nap as good on video or in person as I do just by myself. It just doesn't work like that. I think most nappers will tell you that. When you're under the pressure, you don't do it quite as well. But there, we wiped that piece out too, so we got almost one more right there. And it might take more than one hit, but I'm saying we got one more little turtle back, and we're going to get rid of that. So I'm actually going to raise the platform just a little bit. I might not even be able to hit that one quite yet. Abrade it and steady it. What I'm going to do, instead of going directly on it, I'm going to come down the tip, and I want to release some of these flakes, so I'm going to take a couple little indirect hits right there. Just a little bit, not a lot. Nothing crazy. A little one there. There. It's a good one. Ooh, got a good one too. Almost had a little step fracture right there, so we got to be careful with that. I think I got one more to clean that one up. Oh yeah, we did. Oh yeah, that's gonna work. That should work out good. I might be wrong. Hopefully I'm not. See how it went? A whole thing went opaque under it because we broke it loose, but it didn't totally break loose. So it's loose under here, at least by the way the flake looks, because it's opaque. But it's still connected back here. Well, luckily that's our platform. So I'm hoping now, if we line it up and we get one good lick, we're gonna remove, if we're lucky. Or skilled, one of the two. We're going to hit it here and we're going to remove this flake, and it'll take all of that with it. So, a couple little relief flakes. And then I'm going to abrade it pretty good. One more shot of lubricant. Forget your lubricant. Okay. Alright, let's hope. Almost got it all in one hit. So that one went off, but I still have a platform, so we're in good shape. It didn't remove the all this loose stuff. Honestly, we could probably grab a hold of that with a little pressure flaker and yank that off, but I still have a little platform here. So let's go ahead and braid that off. Let's study it. Get on it one more time. There it went, right there. That was it. Boom, done. We completely clean that piece off. There's a fingernail step fracture right there, and I mean a fingernail. Hardly anything, and by fingernail I mean I could literally normally, not always, normally pop it off with my fingernail. It's tiny. It'll come off in pressure flaking. So that being said, we went from a piece that was about like this. Remember I held two of them up? We went from that size and that thick to that. And we didn't sacrifice hardly any length. We sacrificed a little bit of width. But I'm hoping that watch this video over and over and over again, and remember the key, the absolute key to thinning is raise the platform so far that the flake doesn't have a choice but to remove at least 3/4 or more across the point. You're not going to thin a piece, okay? You're not going to successfully thin a piece if you remove to center. The only way you're going to thin a piece is to remove past center. So if this is the center line, if you just remove to center, then the center never actually gets reduced and it's going to stay turtlebacked. You must remove at least to 3/4 across the point. Okay, so we start off with this great big turtleback kind of piece, and then we can turn it into a nice little biface like this. Now if you want to see us finish something like this out into a point, notch it, sharpen it, the whole 9 yards, I've got plenty of other flint knapping videos. All I would say is type in the YouTube search bar Hunt Primitive Flint Knapping tutorials or Hunt Primitive notching and sharpening or anything along those lines, and you'll find a lot of the other videos. Okay guys, I think we did pretty good on that, at least just thinning it out, the biface. I know thinning is really just about the toughest part when it comes to flint knapping, and that's why I get that question so much, and that's why I just had to do this video. Quite honestly, I thought that this was going to be a lot more quick and concise, but I got kind of wrapped up into it, and I just wanted to share with you as much knowledge as I could on thinning and give you the confidence to be able to do it yourself. And I just couldn't wrap that up into a super short video. So hopefully you were able to learn something from this, and I really hope that you can really learn to thin your points down. And don't worry if you can't get it done the first few times that you do it. Like anything else, it just takes practice. Flint knapping is very tough, but it's very rewarding. So thanks for following along. If you need tools or rock or any of that kind of stuff, if you want to get it from Hunt Primitive, I would appreciate it, but not a big deal. You can get it anywhere. If you find it somewhere cheaper or better or something you like, go for it. Just get involved in flint knapping. It's a good time. And follow us along follow along with us for primitive hunting, where we put this stuff in application, finish it out, go out, shoot, deer, hogs, and even bison and all kinds of crazy stuff with this kind of primitive hunting equipment. So even skinning deer and bison with them. We got tons of videos out there. But thanks for following along. Really appreciate it. And I hope that I was able to give you some value today in this fairly long video. So until then, we'll catch you on the next adventure.